Hello everyone. So let's discuss a question on paper 2, right? Paper 2, the section which we have already done about Vedas, Shruti, Smriti and others, right? So the first question I'm going to discuss, please take your copy book with you, make some notes or whatever, right? So this paper is from the specimen, this question is from the specimen paper. I have not discussed other parts of the question because we have not yet completed, because we are to complete Manusmriti as well, right? So let us finish Manusmriti and then we'll discuss all other questions also. So for now, let's discuss only this one, right? So the question says, summarize the difference between Smriti and Shruti. I hope you remember when we did Veda, we talk about Shruti and Smriti. So only for 5 marks, you have to write about Smriti and Shruti and their difference. So whatever is there here is here actually, say as per the scheme, marking scheme, right? So Smriti and Shruti are terms used to classify types of religious texts. That is what the Hindus believe in to be their religious texts. That is what we call Shruti and Smriti, right? Shruti is usually translated as being heard, which has been heard, right? And Smriti, which has been remembered, right? So Shruti texts are considered to be direct revelation from the Supreme. As we have always said, the sages were in meditation and then they got messages from God. That is what we call Shruti. And that is what Ved is. Ved is Shruti. So as such, the Ved has no beginning, no origin, no author. You know, like the Ramayana has an author. Valmiki is the author. But for Ved, we don't have the author because it is the direct revelation, right? So whatever I'm saying, Ramayana and all, you can write, you can compare, you can add these things here, right? So Smriti text may be commentary or interpretation of Shruti. Let's say Shruti, Vedas and Upanishad. And let's say I am writing a commentary about, let's say, Rig Veda. So that becomes Smriti Asumamana, right? So just like maybe we have Shankaracharya, we have Ramanuj, other scholars. We have Max Muller, even the Western scholars. So when they have, written the things, the commentaries, the interpretation, it becomes then Smriti, which they took from Shruti. That is the way. So both the Smriti and Shruti texts are considered to have authority, right? Usually we say the Ved is authoritative. Pas seulement Ved, pas seulement Shruti is authoritative, but also the Smriti. Like we have today, the Ramayana is very authoritative, or is quite authoritative because we have many people indeed who follow the Ramayana, right? Follow the Ramayana in the sense to imbibe the values and all, right? So both of them, the Shruti and the Smriti text, are authoritative. But Shruti text cannot be superseded, right? That is the one we got from God, so we can't supersede that. Although most Hindus are clear on the difference between the two types of texts, there is no universal argument on which texts have which status. Which one is better than the other? No discussion on that. As far as a text, whether Shruti or Smriti, a text is being helpful to someone to improve his or her life, right? So no discussion about the status of the text. It is also true that some branches of Hinduism do not consider the Vedas to be authoritative. We have, but at least as we say, uh, they are following their uh, smriti, right? And may therefore reject status of shruti. Similarly, later texts such as the Mahabharata and some are sometimes described as shruti. I guess we talked about it, why Mahabharata is considered as shruti. Pourtant, Mahabharata was written by Vedyas. Just because we have that Bhagavad Gita part in the Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita was given by Krishna, who was God, who is God, was given by him to Arjun. So that's why some people, especially the Vaishnav, they consider the Mahabharata to be Shruti, right? So as I say, the point is we follow Shruti or Smriti. That is not important. That is not a matter to be discussed actually, parce uh, at least the person is doing something, at least the person is following something in his or her life, right? To be better. And of course, no scripture will tell us to go on the wrong way, right? So we continue with the discussion of questions. Next question, which I have put as extra question. Which I have written as extra question. These are not from the specimen paper, but these are probable, or these are the type of question that you might get, right? So this have formulated the questions myself. I have two like this, right? So premier, let's discuss the first one. Make sure to have your copybook, your note, your pen and all with you. You can write stuff. So the first question, Rabindranath Tagore, yeah, I guess you have heard. Rabindranath Tagore characterizes the Ramayana as the epic of the relations of family life. This has been said by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan was a great philosopher, Indian great philosopher. He was also in politics in India, but that is not of our concern. Our concern is his philosophy, right? So this is what he quoted, right? He wrote about that Rabindranath Tagore characterizes the Ramayana as the epic of the relations of family life. So whenever you are reading a quote like this in a question, make sure you underline the key word, right? You underline the keyword. Here, Rabindranath Tagore is not the keyword, definitely not. It's just a quote which he said. It could be someone else, right? So here the keyword is, of course, the Ramayana. We're talking about the Ramayana and relations of family life, right? So you underline things, words, keywords. You will get 3 questions. If ever you get a quote like this, you will get 3 questions based on this. 2 or 3 normalement, 3, right? And it's not usually in the order I have put it. It should be usually première question 5 points, deuxième 10 points, et troisième question 15 points, right? So I discussed the last one first. It's the easiest one. Outline 5 main points in the character of Ram. Ramayana is the main character so far we discussed in the Ramayana. So you write 5 points about his character here, right? Maybe you can, one example I'll tell you, maybe you can write that Ram was an ideal son as he, agreed to go to the forest, right? Though he was not to be blamed for anything, right? So these are things you can write. You write five points. No need to elaborate as well, huh? Right? So next one, the first question. Explain why the teachings of the Ramayana on idealism might be important to Hindus. 10 marks. The teachings of Ramayana on idealism. Here's the keyword idealism. Okay. Idealism is supposed to be ideal. And we know Ram was the ideal person, ideal man, ideal son, ideal husband, ideal brother, ideal friend. Apart from him, we have also Sita to be the ideal woman, the ideal wife. You have Lakshman, the ideal brother, especially, right? And you have also Bharat being an ideal brother, right? Hanuman, the ideal devotee, right? So we have many characters. It's not just based on Ram now. So you have to explain why these teachings of Ramayana on idealism might be important to Hindus. Why do Hindus consider these teachings to be important on idealism, being ideal? Right. So definitely what you can start writing how Ramayana is famous worldwide. And we see generally what the tendency is. We can notice that more and more people are showing interest, we are focusing or showing interest on the Ramayana. Okay. And if you talk about your country itself, in Mauritius, many Hindus, we do read the Ramayana, we have a Ramayana or the Ramcharitmanas in our house. We have that. You have the Ramayana competition, Ramayana singing competition to sub, which shows that to Sala, show that we are giving importance to that. Why are we giving importance to the Ramayana? Because the Ramayana is very helpful to us. What do we learn from the Ramayana? We learn idealism from the Ramayana. And now you need to take examples from the Ramayana. Don't just write Ramayana teaches us this and that. No. When you say Ramayana teaches you idealism, write, justify your answer. Take examples from the Ramcharitmanas. Let's take one example of Ram. Ram, he agreed to go to the forest for 14 years, right? And he was not to be blamed. He was not at fault. There was no issue actually from his side. Yet he agreed because he was an ideal son. His father promised Kaikeyi that he's going to give the two boons to her, and it was now time. So he went to the forest so that his father can fulfill his promise, right? So this is one thing you can write. Now, just don't take examples from Ram. You can take examples from Sita. You can take example from Hanuman also, a very good one. Now, if you want to write about Ravan, though we don't consider Ravan to be ideal, but Ravan was a very kind of, you can say, perfect devotee, a very great devotee of Lord Shiv. We can learn that from him. So when you are writing, it's not necessary that you are writing about only positive character, positive things. You can include the negative character as well, what we call the bad character, right? You can include that also. For example, I said Ravan, right? So Ravan, apart from being a very great devotee of Lord Shiv, he was a great king as well. But because of his boons, his blessings, his powers he got, he became arrogant. So you can take that as an example as well, not to be arrogant. Our end will be just like Ravan, right? So you can add these stuff also in your work. Good. So criticism point, justification should be there in your answer for you to get those 10 marks. Lipa fácil to earn the 10 marks, right? You have to criticize a lot to justify. Let's see the next question. Assess the claim that Ramayana is a simplified version of the Vedas. It is a simplified version of the Vedas. We know the Ved taught us many things, right? En general, you know how the Ved is. You can start writing how the Ved is. We have 4 Vedas, and each Veda is divided into 4, the Samhita, the Brahmana, the Aranyak, and the Upanishad. Make sure you don't give details of each of them. That is not required here, right? So Ramayana is a simplified version of Ved, right? Ved is so vast, is so huge. And another problem in the Ved, from the Ved, is the language used. The original one, I'm saying at least, the language used. And par contre, the Ramayana, we have, of course, Ramayana has been written in Sanskrit, though, but we have next to it Ramcharitmanas as well, where we can understand better the language, and it is more accessible. It's all in one book, no, the Ramayana. We don't have it in many volumes, which may take us time to read. So the Vedas, just this, the Ramayana is a simplified version of the Ved. Now, what do we have in the Ved and in the Ramayana then? Right? It's just simple teachings. Even the Ved has told us, one example, the Ved has told us to do fire sacrifices. We have the 5 great fire sacrifices, the Pancha Mahayagya, right? And even the Ramayana taught us the same thing, to do the Pancha Mahayagya, but in a simplified version. The Ved will elaborate on how to do it and all. Yes, sure, we get more information from the Ved, but the Ramayana leaves just like, like a movie. From movie, it's easier to learn, no? The Ramayana. From the Ved, we learn that Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. Right? I guess I gave you that. This is from the Ved, Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. We have to speak the truth and to act as per dharma, according to dharma. It's all there written in the Veda, but the Ramayana is bien sûr the story of Ram and other characters we have in the Ramayana. They explain to us in a very simplified manner what is it that we need to Satyam Vada, we need to speak the truth. What does it mean to follow dharma? We learn from the Ramayana, right? So you have to continue likewise. You take examples, please, from Ramayana and all, right? So this is the second question which you try to attempt, right? Now let's discuss the next question, which is on Mahabharata. This is also a question which I formulated. It is not from the specimen paper, right? So I read this. The Mahabharata says Rabindranath, that is Rabindranath is saying that the Mahabharata is an epic where the lid has been taken off. The lid, comme c'est une couverture, has been taken off the entire humanity of an age, and men and women are exposed to view in all their greatness and meanness, in heroism and cowardice, in love and hatred, in compassion and cruelty, in the raw and are supremely cultured. This has been said written by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan again, right? So this is quite long. When you read such stuff, you have to underline keywords and you have to understand this. Parce que souvent des fois, première question que vous gagnez will be outline what the passage above says about the Mahabharata. You have to come see like summarize, outline, but you don't elaborate, on the ideas. You don't elaborate on the ideas. You just mention, you just say the idea, what has been said. So most of the time, the first question is like this. For you to write, what have you understood here? So as the question says, outline what the passage above says about the Mahabharata, right? So let's try to understand it. So as per Rabindranath Tagore, he says that Mahabharata, it is an epic, of course, we know, where the lid has been taken off, the lid couverture has been taken off of the entire humanity, of an age, men, women, ça veut dire tout, includes everyone, are exposed to view in all their greatness. Men and women view in all their greatness and meanness, to be mean, heroism. We have seen heroes in the Mahabharata. We have seen people who are coward in the Mahabharata. We have seen love, hatred in the Mahabharata, compassion, cruelty in the Mahabharata. We have seen raw and supremely cultured. Raw Vidya characters like which have not been refined, right? And supremely cultured Sivan character which are refined, personalities which are refined, they are cultured, right? So what you understand here, you have to write, right? I leave this up to you. I want to see how you react upon such thing, right? Next question, explain why the teachings of the Mahabharata might be important to Hindus. Certain questions would be expect for whatever you have learned so far. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Manusmriti, Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. You have to expect such a question. C'est une question que vous avez préparée pour tout ce qui vous apprend, tout texte plutôt. Right? About the Ved, Mahabharata, what do we learn? What are the teachings? Ramayana, c'est une question là aussi. Ramayana, the Manusmriti, and the Bhagavad Gita as well. That question you must prepare for all, right? So explain why the teachings of the Mahabharata might be important. C'est very important, the teachings. First of all, you need to know what are the teachings. Premier teaching will be dharma, of course, and respecting others, not to be arrogant. For example, Duryodhan, not to be greedy, again Duryodhan. And from Dhritarashtra, the blind king, what you can learn is, his wife also, she put a cloth on the eyes and acted as a blind. She was not blind. The lesson we learn from this is we should never act blind when injustice happens, right? Despite the fact that the king Dhritarashtra was blind, but he knew what was happening. It's not that he did not know anything what was happening there. He knew everything what was happening. So it was his duty to stop these things, but he could not. He had some, you can say attachment with his son, Duryodhan. That's why he could not stop him and all, whatever the reason, but his duty was as a king and also as a father was to stop that, but he did not, right? So I'm giving you some ideas, what you can write actually in this type of question. What you can learn from Krishna, what you can learn from Arjun. Probably Bhagavad Gita is included in Mahabharata. Probably yes, you can use your weapon of Bhagavad Gita here. Explain why the teachings of the Mahabharata might be important. Because of the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata has got great importance because of the Bhagavad Gita. That is a true thing, right? So don't don't try to explain the Bhagavad Gita also here. Sinon, the question could be irrelevant because the question is on Mahabharata. But surely you can mention that Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. That's why the Mahabharata has got such a great importance in our life, right? For example, the Bhagavad Gita teaches us the path to moksha, the path to be a perfect person, the path to moksha, that is bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga. That's it. You don't elaborate on this stuff, right? Next question. Assess the idea that one is free to violate dharma. This is free to violate dharma is part of actually the Bhagavad Gita, which says that one is free to act, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said that one is free to act, but we have to bear the consequences. So assess, as per the Mahabharata, assess the idea that one is free to violate dharma. Are we free to violate dharma? Here you need to talk about dharma in the Mahabharata. We have discussed about dharma. You write about dharma, the meaning of dharma. What is that dharma? And please make sure to mention dharma and adharma in the Mahabharata. The Pandav represent dharma and the Kaurav represent adharma. We have these two clans in the Mahabharata. Make sure you mention that. And then you write how some have been violating dharma and those have been protecting dharma. You can write quotes here like yato Krishna tato Jaya can be here. Yato dharma tato Jaya, if we dharma rakshati, also if we protect dharma, dharma will protect us. You can also add devoid of dharma, a man is an animal. Dharmena hina pashu samana. So like Duryodhan, he was not able to control himself. So he violated dharma, he acted like that animal as per what the quote says. And what the Veda and especially Mahatma Gandhi also stated, ahimsa paramo dharma. The highest, greatest religion is ahimsa, non-violence. Right. So these are few things of hints or ideas I'm giving you. Try to write the answer, right? And then you send me your work. I love to see your work, how you write, how you respond, how you criticize, how you justify things, right? So take care. Bye bye.